Hey, so for this talk, I want to talk about acceptance criteria. So when we size up work and we break down work either in Kanban or in Agile or in some other methodology, basically what we do is we create user stories or tasks. And there are a bunch of attributes on those that come into play. And the one that I have really come to find the most interesting is the acceptance criteria. It turns out people have a real trouble creating the acceptance criteria for stories. And without them, you can't do any kind of sizing or other things. So I really feel like it's an overlooked attribute. Typically, what we work on is the description and the business requirements. Anyway, I'm going to talk about the main parts about a user story. And so one of the main things we work on really is coming up with a time estimate, right? Like we create stories so that people know what to work on, but we also create them so that people can size them and get an idea how long something's going to take, because that's really what management cares about. They don't care what you do. Well, they do kind of, but they all really care about how much is it going to cost and what is it going to take. So the thing driving acceptance criteria or anything in the user story, a lot of it is around the time estimate. And then we have the work to be done, and then we try and estimate how long that's going to take. And then sometimes after, we try and figure out how accurate we were. But a lot of people don't care because the money's already spent. So the time estimate is really for the team, so they can get a feel for how many things they can get done in some time window. I'm going to walk through the rest of the attributes here. So parent and related work. So these are really outside this story, other than for dependency tracking. Hey, there's some other story out there that is related to this that needs to be done before this one. Those are actually blockers normally, so that's something different. But I would argue that parent and related work in a lot of ways is really for management. The people doing the day-to-day work, they care about the related work and the parent, but really their concern is, what am I working on and what do I need to do to know that I did this correctly? Some of the fields that we actually use in user stories and tasking are actually just for reporting. And it really weirds people out. They're like talking about how we want to set up stuff. And part of me is, what do you want the report to look like? It's all about the reporting, right? So we have some of these fields that are useful for me or for the team that are actually building something. And some of the fields are really for management. So binning values are really the one to me. Well, there's two of them, time spent and binning values, right? So people want to have an idea how much something cost or how much time was actually spent, and they want to know what we predicted it at, so they can try and get a value for future work or get an idea what something costs. Although in the software world, nobody really wants to know the true cost. If they did, they would do real estimates and they wouldn't try and squeeze schedules and do all kinds of other things. So binning values, and those are really where we bucket stuff. So, hey, what component is this for? What team? What type of work is this? Is it design? Is it analysis? Is it construction? Is it assembly? Any of those kind of things? Those are really for reports. Like, look, if I'm on a team and doing some work, if you were building a building and somebody said, go build that wall, you just want to know, what does this wall need to look like? You don't really care how many other walls there are, or that this is build to the wall group instead of the drywall group, right? So these things are really for management. So the next group is driven, all the work is really driven by these three things. To be honest, the rest of those things don't matter when you're trying to figure out what you need to work on today or what this task is. And there's the description, which is really, that should probably be in the reporting bin also. There's the requirements. So this is often the description. And these are, and so the team needs that. That's kind of the agreement on what the work is that's going to be done. But I would argue that, I am arguing that the red one here, acceptance criteria, is the one that tells you really, you know, what actually needs to be done. Because the requirements tell you what needs to be done. But what you want to know is, am I done? And the acceptance criteria determine, am I done? Did we finish this? Are they willing to sign off on this? Will they accept this? The acceptance criteria for a building might be, hey, we can move in, it passed all the inspections, and we got a certificate of occupancy, right? And that might be the acceptance criteria. Although probably not completely, because you'd have like a punch list with everything else. So acceptance criteria, business requirements, and description, these are really for the team. So we want reliable time estimates. And what I have found doing a lot of story tasking and sizing is that without acceptance criteria, actually, a lot of times people don't have decent acceptance criteria and they just do business requirements. And you'll find that the entire discussion about trying to figure out how much work this is really, what are the acceptance criteria? The requirements are important, but it's like, when will we know if we got this right? So the acceptance criteria and the time estimate, those are really for the team. the time estimate I showed before actually overlaps. It's kind of the team and management, but time estimate and acceptance criteria really are the things that tell the team how big, that are bound together, because the acceptance criteria give you a feel for how big the time estimate is going to be. Do I need testing? Do I need design? Do I need documentation? Does it need a security review? Those are all acceptance criteria. So the acceptance criteria really describe everything required for sign-off. We have this notion of a definition of done for a story, and people only marginally honor it, right? Because it's sort of in a different document and it's not attached to this, and it's sort of a nice to have. But really, the acceptance criteria in the story, when you go through the review and the backlog, you're going to be looking at, is this story done? Did we meet the acceptance criteria? Your true definition of done is the acceptance criteria. So the acceptance criteria is for the team and for the business. And like I said, I have found, and you will probably see, if you add acceptance criteria to your tasking, and you look at that when you're doing sizing, your sizing, everybody will have a much better understanding of what they signed up for, and the owners will understand whether that thing's been delivered or not. And that's it. So I had some alternative titles for this, and none of them would fit on the blog title, so that's not what I used. So that's it. So in my view, acceptance criteria is king. That is really the thing that is vastly underestimated and super important in the world of sizing work and delivering functionality.